Well, welcome everyone to the November 12th, 2024 Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. Looks like Thea fell off. Maybe she'll come back on in a minute, but I think we all know each other, right? Stephen, do you know Joanna?
No, I have not met Joanna except just while we were waiting for everybody else to come.
I've seen Stephen, but no, we don't know each other.
Do you want to each give each other a quick background of who you are and what great stuff you do?
Okay, been in the WIT 5 years, live on North Polk, and my partner is Gibby and my cat is Magoo. That's it.
Joanna, do you want to
Go ahead.
Do you want to give an introduction to Stephen?
Stephen, hi. I've been living here in the same house in the WIT, in the area of 5th and Polk. I'm really dating myself for over 50 years now. I know. I have trouble believing it sometimes, but I'm an old woman. But anyway, yeah, and I got involved with this group because I'm a ham radio operator, and I tried for a long time to get MCOM started in this group. And a couple of people who were on board with that have disappeared. But now this group seems, so far at least, much more open, and I'm very hopeful. I don't know if it's when I'm talking, but I'm hearing another voice.
Yeah, we're having a weird thing here. Thea says she has no sound. Hey, Janet. Can you hear okay? This is a weird echo.
It is. Okay, I'm going to say hello, hello. Doesn't seem to have been me.
Not speaking, turn our microphones off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's turn all the mics off and see what happens. Okay, I think that cleaned it up. Yeah, I think we're just getting a lot of bounce back. Thea, did you get it solved? Oh, she can't see me, or hear me. Let's see, let's put this in the chat. Let's ask her.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Now we can't. Oh, bummer. Let's see. Let's tell Thea if she can try to rejoin.
Try again, Thea, with yourself off mute. I heard you for a second.
So can you hear me now? Just wave at me if you can hear me.
Great. Okay. Can you hear us? Now you're muted again. Darn it. Oh, technology. Wish we were just all over at Sam Bonds or Oakshire.
I'm going to close out
and try
back in.
Okay, sounds good. All right. All right. Let's hope she can rejoin us all. Why don't we dive in? And it looks like Thea's coming on to give us a little park and safety update. So let's give her 1 minute, see if she can hop back on. If not, we'll just go ahead and start with Joanna. She's going to do a little NCOM citywide drill brief, or debrief, actually. Tell us how it went. Joanna, why don't you start? I don't see Thea. She might be... Oh, you're on mute, hon. Okay.
Okay, so, sorry. Gary's got a meeting at 7. He's sitting right next to me. So when I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to be leaving this meeting and opening it again on another computer that doesn't have a camera. So you will not see me there.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a lot to unpack tonight. So why don't you go ahead, and then Stephen, I know, has to leave at 7:30. So we want to get to our train conversation as soon as we can. So
Okay.
why don't we, any better, Thea? All right, Joanna, go ahead. Why don't you tell us a brief debrief on how this
No,
went?
But I'm reading what's on the screen and I'm a fast reader. So as long as you can hear me, I can give an update.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So let's see. I don't have the date in my head anymore. What was the date of the citywide?
The 19th.
October, sometime mid-October.
Mhm.
There was a citywide MCOM exercise. I assume everybody knows what MCOM is. I don't have to go there. And so the way that is structured is that the city is divided into 4 quadrants. The width and several other areas and the fan neighborhood are both in sector 2. In this sector, I am the neighborhood ham, and Gary is the neighborhood net control. So Megan, I wanted to call her Meghan Markle.
Megan Kemples.
Temple.
Thank you. Thank you. Megan has for a long time now been a point of contact. She goes around, she has a team that goes around pretending to gather emergency reports. When she gets those reports, she contacts me, gives me those reports. I log them, and then those get transferred to Gary, who, as I said, is the district net manager. Ultimately, he sends them up to the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center. So it's, when I first started this, I thought, oh my word, this is so militaristic. But the more you're involved, the more you realize it has to be very tightly structured because it gets crazy. It gets really crazy. So the more we practice, the better we'll all be, which is why I get kind of adamant about, come on, Whit, let's get on board, because we got some stuff going on here that if there is a big emergency, we've got oil tanks or whatever, we have the river, we've got a lot of stuff. And so I am adamant. Now, so I know that we're coming along. The other thing I want to mention in that regard is that I have quite recently joined the Friendly Area Neighborhood Group, which is very together in their approach to emergency communication. So I have recently joined their group to be on the rotating schedule of net operators. I don't know if any of you have ham radios. So I think what I would like to do is invite you one time when I'm the net control to all, we can tune in together on Google Docs, is that it? And I'll be on the radio doing net control, and you'll hear the process of how that goes. And it might encourage more of you to get involved. They have also FRS and GMRS, but because of the geographic distance between us and the friendly area neighborhood, we won't be able to make contact with them. Now Gary can, he's got some powerful antennas going, but I'm relying on ham radio. So I'm not going to push you, but I am going to encourage you to get involved. I will let you know the next time I'm told that I'm going to be net control. And I guess what I'll do is send that notification to Doriandra, who can share it with the rest of you. And that's, you know, in a nutshell, what it is. It's more involved, but that's basically what happens. It goes from one level to another, documented all the way. And depending on how widespread the emergency is, it stays local or it can go national. So are there any questions? Oh, Julie, I don't see your hand, but go ahead.
Oh, I don't really have a question except thank you for being involved and being so proactive. It sounds like you have, I know you have a lot of experience and skill with this, and this is something that is a gap. I perceive this to be a gap in our preparedness. I keep saying I'm going to buy a little radio, not ham, but whatever the other one is.
Thinking in an FRS?
FRS, and I haven't, but whenever I hear you talk, it reminds me that I need to do that, and I am interested in listening to you next time you're up. So thanks for being willing to do that for us.
Yeah, and if I don't know if you're going to go after a grant or what, but the more FRS radios there are in the neighborhood, the more people in the neighborhood can communicate with each other about what's going on your street. Do we need to report any accidents, et cetera, fire, power lines down, et cetera, so that goes up the line of command so that we can get you some help. And I want to thank you guys because, as I said, I've been trying for a long time to get WIT to get on board, and you are now doing that, and I applaud you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. You're a total inspiration, and this communication process is essential. So thank you. Did the citywide drill go well?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think this is the second year they've done it, and it went better this time than last time. I'm sure next time will be better. After the drill, there's a debrief so that people who were involved in it can talk about what went right, what went wrong, how can we fix things in the future. Because as I said, when it gets nasty out there, people are going to be very anxious, very afraid, and they need to have their act together as much as possible. And I'm gonna be just as nervous as everybody else, but I'm hoping that I will have been practicing long enough that I can keep calm during it.
Well said. Well, we strive to be as calm as you. Good. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. Thea, can you give your public spaces update, parks and open spaces? Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes. See a thumbs up.
Okay.
So you can hear me, correct, Julie? Okay, great. So I was supposed to get a call from Lindsay Leach today. She and I have been trying to connect with one another. I didn't get that call, so I'll reach out to her again tomorrow. I met with Sarah Maderi and Matt Rodriguez. Matt is the assistant city manager. Sarah is the city manager. Matt's specialty is homeless services. We discussed WJ Park and the surrounding areas and the businesses that are struggling due to the drug activity and some of the issues that are going along with people that are living on the edge of the park. There is still nighttime security in the WJ Park, Maury Jacobs, Scoburg Gardens, Monroe, which is in West Side neighborhood. They plan on keeping that. The issue is they move them out of the park at 11 o'clock at night. They move in front of the businesses, then they move back to the park. Parks wasn't cleaning up because Parks employees didn't feel safe. There's been a lot of extra drug use that's been going on in the neighborhood. We've had 2 deaths in the last 2 weeks, one today and one a couple Sundays ago in the heart of Whitaker. I'm not sure how they're going to handle it. I do know that the Breakfast Brigade, which is now Neighbors Feeding Neighbors, permit, the appeal was denied. And so they are not going to allow people to be fed in the park because they realize it is drawing people into the park, into the neighborhood, and creating issues. We just lost Handy's hardware store. They are closing their doors because they were not getting enough customers. I know, Julie, I'm heartbroken.
Is this the new?
They felt like people were just speeding by on 6th and 7th Street. They also had issues with people camping in their parking lot and where their deliveries were, and people not wanting to come in because they were not feeling safe. And then I just learned that Sam Bonds is up for sale, and if they do not find their doors are closing on December 31st. I do not know the reasons behind it. That was just a Facebook post. One of the things I stressed to the city manager was that we are losing businesses because people do not feel safe, employees as well as residents, and that we are a walkable neighborhood and we need to remain walkable. So they're supposedly working on that. And I have spoken with Chief Skinner about that as well, on how to keep it walkable. I do know that they have been working on keeping some of the harder hit areas cleaned up. They're trying to patrol that, but that relies on citizens reporting when there's trash left behind or camps that are growing out of control. We're also starting to see a lot more fires. So as a public health and safety team, we need to really talk about or get the word out is that when you see a fire, it needs to be reported. You know, if there is trash out there, you need to see, I'll get your question in a minute, Janet. If you're not comfortable with a camp in front of your place, it needs to be reported. Individuals right now are having to report. I've asked that they start going back to a couple years ago, they did routine checks. We also discussed trash cans. And so I'm working on that with Matt Rodriguez. And we're going to see if we can get some trash cans because the LTD bus trash cans are overflowing. So I will do my best to take questions. But basically, it's all still a work in progress. I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall because I've been saying the same thing for many, many years now. I'm scared that we're losing businesses. I'm scared that we have residents that don't want to be here now. So, questions? I think you were first, Janet, and then Joanna. And I'll have to read it, so give me a second.
Thank you, Thea, for all you do. And I will agree. I think the last one leaving Eugene, please turn off the lights. I've never seen so many real estate signs up. And one of the issues is you've heard of the registered no trespass, where if you see something you call EPD, well, frequently that corner on 5th and Washington, I think it's CJ Walker has that place up for sale. large posted no trespassing signs all over, and I saw a horde of campers there spread out, trash everywhere. And I did my civic duty by calling EPD to get them cleared off the clearly posted no trespassing sign. In fact, I reported this to the police auditor. They tell me that unless I'm a person with responsibility on that property, have the authority, that they wouldn't respond.
That is correct. The owner
Yeah.
of the property or the property manager has to call in on the no
Okay.
trespass.
That
So what
was
I have done in the past is
uh,
I call the property owner and said, do you realize this is going on your property?
I have been
Oftentimes they don't. I have called the real estate person that's in charge of the one on 2nd and Van Buren and asked them to call it in. I'm also reporting things to Chief Skinner directly right now. I'm
Yeah.
sending him emails and pictures. And
Okay.
one of the issues is they're keeping the tracks clean. And right now, the group that was living under the tracks, under the Chambers Bridge, is now underneath the WJ Bridge. So
Well,
I
that
will
called
be
from
talking to Chief Skinner about that tomorrow because they're one of our main drug dealers in town.
This is what I wanted to say though, Thea. I too have a registered no trespass. And when I signatured for that, my understanding was that essentially that was my signature authorizing police. If a neighbor of mine happened to see something odd going on, my neighbors, anyone that saw activity could call the police and there would be a response. It was a pre-signaturing of my permission for
So
police to
they have
deal
a
with.
lot of new dispatch people, Janet, and they're
Mhm.
still training them.
Mhm.
So that's part of our issue is that we have a lot of dispatch. I have called in 2 fires this week, one by my house, one in WJ.
Mhm.
One of them, I got a great response. They were offering to send a fire truck out. The other one, they told me they would send it over to dispatch. And I don't think anything ever rolled on it.
I have lodged a complaint with the police auditor's office to get clarity. And possibly if that registered no trespass is no longer the way it was explained to me when I saw signatured for it, then they need to put it back where anyone seeing untoward activity on a property posted with no trespass, that should
That's out of
warrant
my
a
control.
response. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll see what the police auditor's office and I'll report it back if you guys want me to on the outcome of that complaint. Thank you.
Great. Joanna, you have a question?
Well, I did, but it seems moot at this point. My question had been, well, okay, if I see some not okay activity, who do I report it to? But it sounds now like good luck. And
I still say report it. So part of the issue is we have so much crime in our town. They're prioritizing it. And they do patrols by looking at reports. So I encourage people to report anything. And if you get a really bad call where it's really ugly, you can ask for it to be reviewed by a supervisor. And they will go in and listen to your call. And then they will find out. I always send an email in. And you're more than welcome to send me an email with the date and time of the call. And I write the supervisor and ask them to review it and say, how do we need to change how we're asking? I have asked Margaret if maybe in February, we could have dispatch come to one of our meetings and train people how to call again. We've done that a few years now. So I think it would be a good idea.
Thea, I don't know, but maybe I should have your email. Maybe we should have each other's emails. I have no intention of exploiting that, but it might help a little bit.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, I just wanted to add that people are getting chased out of a number of places in the neighborhood because of what's going on. I'm starting to notice a lot more camping in my area. and I'm watching it increase. So a lot of good that does. Take them out of here, they'll go here.
That is what they're doing. They're bouncing them around. I do know that Randy Groves is bringing several things. Councilor Groves is bringing several things to the council. And one is no shopping carts in parks. It's not a popular idea, but that is one of the things they're talking about doing. They're also talking about making, he would like to see that you have to show ID for metal, because metal theft is way up, wire theft and all kinds of metal. And so he's trying to make it so that if you're turning in metal, you have to show ID. And that should help with some of the theft. I don't know if you heard about Euphoria Chocolate losing all their heating and air because they had all their wires stripped out, but that's a big thing that happens now. So we do have to just report.
Mhm.
Julie, I think you were up next.
Thea, thank you for being such an amazing resource. And I really appreciate the idea that if we have a kind of heinous experience with dispatch, there is a review process. I've called about fires literally in front of my house and been told, like, we don't care, essentially. We won't roll on it. We won't tell the fire department. It hasn't happened this year, but I have had that experience, and it's disturbing. I'm disturbed that people are cold also. I understand this is happening because people are cold and desperate to be warm, but fires on the street and next to cars is not the answer. But so that's great information. I'm devastated about handies. I've been trying to support them as much as I can. I think they have been wonderful, but I'm not surprised. Anyway, thank you, Thea.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fires are getting worse. I had someone knock on my door last Friday night at 9:30 because someone was throwing fire in the park. They had stuffed a wrapping tube full of newspaper and it had an accelerant, and it was burning about 2 feet high. And they did offer to send a fire truck for that one, but I stomped it out and poured water on it, because by the time the truck got here, it would have been out anyway. But I did ask them to send a watch commander. I said, please send this to the watch commander because someone is throwing fire in the park. And we've had that issue once before. So I do encourage people to report fires. Now, fires are allowed in barbecues though. So, but not on the streets, but in our parks. You can have a barbecue if you're cooking. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Are there any other questions? I'm not going to stay on because I am in the middle of remodeling my kitchen and I haven't eaten and I can't hear you guys and it's too hard to read.
Well, thank you, Thea, so much. We appreciate you popping on and doing all that you do. You are an inspiration. So go back to your pizza and your kitchen and we'll see you another time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll figure out my sound issue. You guys have a good night. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Thea. All right. All right, folks, let's jump into this train project that's happening. And boy, yeah, so I caught this email recently in the Whitaker Community Council email that was very brief and just said that an independent marketing company or consulting company had been hired by this massive project to kind of gather community concern or engagement. And it's a pretty important process. The takeaway basically is that, as the organ industry changed from being so prosperous with the timber industry, I think they still are, but that was kind of the reason cited for this massive project. They were trying to find new ways to move imports intercoastally. So they wanted to open up another channel, as it were, for goods, and how this will, impact as we go into the next 4 years of potential intense tariffs and whatnot, I don't know. But the Port of Coos Bay has, wanting to expand. So this means dredging there and making their whole coastal region adequate to receive giant ships. And, there's other aspects of this, but the way that it's deeply could affect the Whitaker is with these trains, the train increase. And the first part of that would be an upgrade to the railroad. So when they, talked to me about that, they said, essentially, this is to increase the freight traffic. So although we have 9 ways for trains to get from Eugene over to the coast, all of those rails lines will be upgraded with track replacements, bridge rehabilitation, tunnel heightening, and siding extensions. Plus, then the Eugene Pacific's Eugene Rail Yard will be improved with, whole new interchanging tracks. Let's see, someone's got a hand up. No, not yet. Okay. So yeah, I want to just show you what I want to do real quick is open up the site. Let me share the site with you here. And I put the link in our meeting review. Let's see, let's open this up and we can take a look on it. And then I'm also going to put the link in the chat. All right, so here's the project itself. This, like I said, it's 3 different parts. The first 2 are not so impacting for us, but it's the upgraded railroad that's going to present some issues. So they gave me a handy little fact sheet, and here we'll go put this in the chat as well for everyone. And then I'm going to go ahead and send the fact sheet that I received from them to our group email right now. Let's see, what did I do with this? Here we go. So we just all have everything we need. Actually, I'll take the board out and we'll just put those of us on here instead. Okay, there's Janet and Joanna. There we go. Okay, so I think these sheets are nice and glossy and they kind of address what the big plan is, but in my opinion, it really wasn't the data that we needed to be more. Gosh, this echo's horrible. Is everybody on mute? Yeah, it looks like everyone's on mute. Okay. All right. I don't know why we're getting that feedback, but in the event, the kind of nuts and bolts that they don't really talk about in these fact sheets here, I was able to get today. And essentially what it means for the Whitaker is an increase of 1.2 million shipping containers per year coming through. And although they tried to say that some of them will be directed northbound to Chicago, that still means they're coming through the Eugene portal first. And so I said, well, what is the actual number? What can this look like? And the exact quote was kind of staggering. And mind you, these are not our basic trains that we're used to. These are double stacked trains. So it's double height, which really is alarming when we think about derailment. They are estimating 12 1-mile long trains a day. So that is a lot of trains. It's essentially 12 miles of train additioning to what we already are having. So all the times that everyone's stuck waiting for trains to go, I think if we add 12 miles more a day of trains, it's pretty profound. So, this is a funky process where it has to go through the National Environmental Protection Act to see if it is feasible. I guess I fear that we're going to just have the usual kind of fight to hold back industrialization. And that's really kind of the onus of the Whitaker Community Council when they were trying to put the train or the freeways back in the 70s. So we're kind of in this, to me, this seems really a big deal. Let's see, Stephen and Janet both have hands up. I guess, Stephen, are you first?
Probably, yeah. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I spent quite a bit of time this afternoon looking at a lot of planning documents from the past for this project. And I came to the same conclusion about trains. They're saying it will require an additional 6 trains going to Coos Bay and 6 trains coming back, each of them being a mile or more long. Currently, Coos Bay line doesn't go anywhere other than Eugene. Everything that comes in from Coos Bay has to go through the marshalling yard in Eugene to be redirected to one of the major rail lines that goes to other parts of the country, like Union Pacific and everybody else. So all of this stuff will come down the Coos Bay line in the same way that the afternoon train currently does. They have to come off the Coos Bay line onto the main line until the back of the train is clear of the switch. And then they move the switch over and then they back the train up to the marshalling yard, which is where all the sorting will take place. So while they're doing that, we're used to the early afternoon train that blocks the crossings. This will be much more extreme. It will be a mile-long trains happening 6 times a day in each direction. So it's a major impact on the road, on the grade crossings through, including Van Buren and all the other ones. This will dramatically increase air quality issues, which is, I think, why Beyond Toxics has commented on this process in the past. So Beyond Toxics could definitely be an ally on the air quality issue. And what's disturbing to me is that the NEPA process has exemptions for railroads, and that's regulated by what's called the Surface Transportation Board. And so it's a lot different from most environmental assessments. And we should probably talk to Beyond Toxics. They seem to have spent some time, their legal team seems to have spent some time on this, but it will have a major impact on grade crossings and air quality in my estimation. So this is a really big deal for the neighborhood, because we are the choke point on freight to and from Coos Bay. It was not designed to handle that kind of volume on the Coos Bay line. It was just the 1 train a day of lumber products going backwards, coming in from Coos Bay, and that was the extent of it. Hence the need for upgrading the tracks, because they're going to be moving these double stack container trains instead of just the lumber train once a day. So that was my takeaway from reading planning documents a lot online this afternoon. I think most of that is reliable information. It seems to mesh with what Doriandra is finding and what Doriandra is being told. So this is a big deal.
It is. Stephen, did you read this? I just put one in the chat here. This is what I was researching today, the review of maritime transport. This is really interesting from the United Nations. This kind of addresses some of the issues you talked about, but in any event, I agree. This is pretty monumentous. Janet, did you have a hand up? Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you.
I can tell from the conversation that this will hugely increase the traffic of the rail cars here in Eugene. Almost sounds like Eugene. Stephen, is it like we're the hub for the switching out of the trains? Is that what this report is indicating, that we're going to be kind of the central station, so to speak? I can't hear you. I didn't hear you.
We already are what's called the interchange for the Coos Bay line. When you look at the maps of the Coos Bay line in relationship to Eugene, Eugene is the interchange for the Coos Bay line.
Right, which I think the quiet zone that was spearheaded, that could help with the traffic if they were to implement that by tunneling under at one point, but there are many crossings, so to speak, and I don't know if that would improve it to a point that it'd be worth it, so to speak.
Improve the noise, but won't necessarily
Yeah.
make it any easier to move
The
mile-long
noise
trains through the wet.
and the traffic when cars are backed up, blocks, waiting for a mile-long train. You get people that will, when they see the gates drop, they'll be more risky in trying to get over those tracks. There's going to be a host of problems with that increased rail traffic and the increased delays, the increased traffic or air quality, all of that. And I just don't see why if they're going to have to improve the tracks, why don't they just take the improvement of those tracks far and away from urban Eugene?
Yeah, that would be nice, but not the case. Julie, go ahead.
So, Doriandra, I know you haven't maybe finished talking about this, so perhaps you're going to answer my question, but do we have recourse? Are they asking? Us saying this is going to impact us tremendously and negatively isn't really going to help, right? I mean, if Stephen says, and I'm sure he's correct, we're the hub from Coos Bay.
Mhm.
If Coos Bay is doing this, they're not going to hub anywhere else because we're already their hub.
Right.
What is, if anything, is there that we can do? Do we know?
Well, right. So this is why it's so essential to kind of, I feel we should gather a very solid statement and be able to present it and repeat it. I think this is, again, this consulting group, it's not even the stakeholders of the International Port of Coos Bay. This is only, it's called the JLA Public Involvement Team. So it's, they reached out to the Whitaker Community Council and they said, because of, your neighborhood, you're identified as a key stakeholder due to the proximity to the rail yard that the Coos Bay line will connect to and does connect to. So they're basically asking us to just participate in our concerns, our reasons why, and then, like Stephen said, then all that goes into this community engagement plan, which passes on to the National Environmental Policy Act process. But I have mixed feelings about what we can do. One thing would be to have our statement ready. I will meet with them. I believe the date is November 26th, and it's an hour-long process where, they'll ask questions and I'll answer, and hopefully we'll have our statement ready to give to them at that point. And then from there, if it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil, we could have this consulting group come and face the community at a general meeting. I think that would be really important. We can gain some traction through our social media posts and say, hey, folks, this is happening and once I meet with them initially, I'll have a lot more facts, and, we'll get that into a simple post, and we'll push it out into our social media for the council and invite them. I think it would be like Stephen said, paramount to connect with Beyond Toxics. We could have them come to the meeting as well, and we can be the voice of dissension. I don't know. It's how big industry is, and but that's what I was saying. I feel like we're at this really frightening junction again, which is what started the council essentially back in the 70s, when the industrialization was just trying to completely bisect and ruin the gem of Eugene. So yeah, it's upsetting. It's alarming, but I mean, I was stuck behind the train barrier on November 1st, and the only reason I remember the date is it was shut for at least 25-30 minutes, and cars were getting crazy. And it turns out the reason was it was a derailment at the Green Hill, over near Green Hill. It was a truck full of logs, and the train derailed and crushed someone and killed someone. And so, when one of our concerns as a public health and safety team is always thinking about derailment and the high impacts of that. And that's just such a, case in point. And suddenly we have these double-decker trains, right? Mile long. Oh, you're muted, Julie. I didn't hear you.
I'm just reacting to the vision of a double tall, mile long train. And that's crazy to me.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really upsetting. So tonight, I think we're supposed to have like super high winds. I mean, you can just imagine. And then when speaking initially to them about the construction phase itself. So this is a 5-year planning process. It's going to take them 2 years to deal with folks like us. And it's so funny. Their email was so casual, like, "Oh, you're one of the stakeholders." And no, we are the stakeholder, because this is the community that will be so severely impacted. But so about 2 years for them to gather everything, and for us to try to stop, change, or mitigate the impacts. But then it goes into phase 2, which is 3 years of this construction. So with that 3 years of construction, I can imagine an incredible disruption with day-to-day life in the Whitaker, because, mind you, they're taking the trains tracks that we drive across to go from A to B, and they're widening them. They're changing the entire infrastructure. They're creating more interconnectivity hubs for train tracks to move. So that could be 3 years of just utter traffic chaos. And frankly, I'm so shocked that the city of Eugene is not talking about this with us. And so that's next on my list. Like, do you all know about this? So let's see. Janet, go ahead. You're muted.
When we hold discussions like this, Doriandra, and I guess I look, when we hear a problem, it's not enough. Dissent is the first step, yes. But in so doing, I always think there should be a solution, or an alternative way to look at hopefully trying to solve the solution, or at least some of it, to solve the problem. And the process is always asking for public input so they can check that off their checklist. I think it's not deemed as important as pushing that project through. And I suspect the city, as broke as it is right now, they're probably getting some kind of form of federal dollars to feed their piggy bank a little bit. That's why we're getting these fees. But all I'm going to suggest is, in formulating dissension on this, I also like to urge at the same time to have someone understudy the problem that it poses to the citizens of Eugene, and to address it in some logistical correct way in bringing a solution to the table, not just dissension. So when people sit around a table and discuss it and say, oh, we're just going to be dissent on this, that's step one. And I hope we don't just stop at step one, that someone undertake a study of what it would take to be a reasonable solution so the citizens of Eugene can live with this. The other piece I want to bring up is that these railroad crossings, they often indicate if the train holds you up for 15 minutes, you're supposed to call a number,
Mhm.
a 800 number.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those that actually does.
Yep.
I actually sit there in time and I do call. And once in a gray moon, I'll actually get someone on the other line. The
Mhm.
point being is if it's proven that they did go over their time, they are fined.
Mhm.
And I heard that those dollars from that fine are directed to the local school districts within that area. And I don't know if that part's true, but that's what I was, someone shared that with me some years ago. So that's another smaller point is with these mile-long trains, will these wait times for traffic be raised or will that be part of the process of letting them know after the fact that they're violating our wait times
Mhm.
and if the fines will be raised substantially more to trigger um, them getting their trains out of our way.
That is such a great point, Janet. Thank you for both of those. That's an excellent thing to ask. Thank you. I will bring that to their attention and see what that means.
It's not enough just to complain about it. You need to go further with it with a very clearly thought out solution or compromise.
That's what we do here with the Public Health and
Yeah.
Safety Committee is we figure it out and we make change. So thank you. Stephen, go ahead.
This will be my last contribution to this conversation for now, but many of the people backing this project are the same cast of characters as backed the Jordan Cove terminal. And that was going to be a pipeline terminal not far from where this proposed container terminal is going to be, Jordan Cove. It's also in the Coos Bay area and pushed back by lots and lots of stakeholders caused that project to be discontinued a couple of years ago. So the Jordan Cove people keep coming up with ideas for revitalizing their neighborhood, and it tends to run into a wall of reality fairly during the process when enough people explain what the implications are of the plans that Coos Bay has. So it's not totally immovable. It's not like we're going to be immediately run over by Juggernaut. There's a lot of history of Coos Bay trying to do projects that are impossible. Anyway, just that was my last thought on this one.
That's a good one. Thank you. It's true, right? I think that public policy and community engagement on this will be very helpful. I can't imagine a real solution per se, other than, yeah, like you said. I mean, Stephen, with the Jordan Cove, that's a really good example. Then the other one that's, the project in Bethel, I guess, was held at bay. And that was a lot of the work of Beyond Toxics, the energy plant out there. So yeah. Joanna, are you back? I see. Oh, you just did the computer switch. Okay. Go ahead, Janet.
Thank you, Stephen. I only mentioned that because the difference between the Jordan Cove pipeline and that of a rail system is the railroad is sovereign, more or less. And if they have rail ground, so to speak, that's a little different scenario than what the Jordan Cove project presented. And based on the products, if you will, and with the volume of people that were against it, and I'm proud that they were, and I'm glad that they beat it back. The difference being is with the rail industry, they're kind of a sovereign animal, so to speak, is my understanding when it comes to the laws of the land. That's all I wanted to say.
Julie, do you want to talk about that link you just put in? Yikes.
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone can see the chat or has the chat open. I did go ahead and Google how long can trains block, because I had never heard that, Janet. And it's very frustrating for me. In fact, today I was trying to get to work. I'm blessed with like a 3-minute commute from my home to my work, except when the train is in the way. And today there was no train in the way, but the rail crossings were down at every single street between Monroe and 5th Street Public Market. With, I don't know what was happening, but it was a little frustrating for me because I was trying to get to work. Anyway, it appears that until 2009, they would investigate and fine railroads when trains stopped crossings for more than 10 minutes during the day or 15 minutes overnight. I'm reading from this Oregon Live site. But the Oregon Court of Appeals found that federal law overrides state regulations. So even though it's a safety, they're pointing out it's also a safety hazard, like police, firefighters, ambulances cannot get across, obviously. Anyway, this is new information for me, not just how long can they block, but the fact that this is evidently going to happen in Coos Bay. And it sounds like multi-million dollars. So kind of hard to fight, but hopefully we can mitigate. Stephen, explain to me, I'm sorry, I don't understand the difference between the Federal Surface Transportation Board.
The
Time.
things I was reading this afternoon explain that exactly as Janet said, railroads are their own animal. They are a different process. They have all these exemptions with NEPA, the National Environmental Protection process. And so regular evaluation of projects doesn't really apply when you're dealing with railroads. I don't know quite the ins and outs of that, but I think the Beyond Toxics legal team has done more work on what the parameters are once a decision is going through the Surface Transportation Board. So it is a complex world, as Janet is implying, and so just because somebody has experience of addressing draft environmental impact statements under NEPA, that doesn't necessarily apply when you're dealing with railroads. They're a different animal. So thank you, Janet, for pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I do want to say too, that's alarming, I guess, or in some way, this project has been already selected for huge grant funding. They have 2 massive grants. One is called the CRISI grant, which is Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Program. It provides funding for capital projects that improve passenger and freight rail transportation. And then the other one, which is even bigger of a grant, let's see, where's the other one? This is really big. This is the U.S. Department of Transportation Infra Grant, which is the nationally significant multi-modal freight and highway project. So these are massive grants. So essentially, this project is paid for, in some, and so that is a brand new development with this. I noticed that banner on the site just this afternoon, which is really significant. Go ahead, Janet. Oh, you're muted. We can't.
The city is cash strapped, and you can probably take it to the bank that they're going to kind of lay down on the dissension piece. So it'll be up to the neighborhood associations, the people, to bring the logistical solution with all that influx of money, of which a city will partake of. We know this. That included in that, someone needs to be studying what could be done to alleviate what this transitioning of traffic, how we can address that in some logistical form and partake of some of that cash that they have to address that problem. So someone needs to get on the ball, I think, because the city's not about to deny that a piece of that pie. So it'll be up to us, the people, to come in and be intelligent and articulate within that industry to address what we need to have done in order to live peaceably in our society.
Agreed.
That's my view of it, because I'm sure the city's not going to refuse any of that money.
Yeah, it's a good point. Go ahead, Julie.
Janet, I wonder if you have the bandwidth to dig into that a little bit. I'm not trying to put it on you. I'm just saying it seems like you're already a little educated on the topic, and we're all volunteers here, so I understand if you don't, but
I
maybe you
did,
do.
and I have at one over 20 years ago. I kind of I take, and I'm going to give myself credit for it. I spearheaded the quiet zone. I identified all the 9 crossing here in downtown Eugene. I identified the streets. I did conversations with the engineer at the time, who at the time I didn't know did not have an engineering license, but he was very helpful. I contacted ODOT in Salem, and I contacted, Stephen knows the acronym for the National Rail. I was in talks with them. So I kind of understand if it's mapped out where the critical areas will be, what those problems are going to be, then having conversations and starting to map out our strategy in addressing in order to coexist with this plan, and insist on that huge mass of money. It addresses what the people feel they will need to coexist with this transportation plan that they're putting in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like someone, if someone could partner up, or, to kind of, but to map it out. It was fairly easy with the quiet zone, because downtown, that train horn was ludicrous. It was so loud. In fact, I had lived in California for several years. And when I came back, I thought I was losing my mind, because the horn was extraordinarily loud. And come to find out, they had replaced the whistle, the train whistle, with 4 directional horns. And this is internationally, this is a problem. So that's what got me into the quiet zone. But this is even bigger, in my opinion, because it's more massive in understanding the scope and what could be done to unilaterally address the coexistence and the air quality and all that. It would have to be a multifaceted approach, in my opinion, as opposed to a pretty singular approach with the quiet zone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It seems like you'd be a great member of that team anyway, because you've got a head start on a lot of this. I can see the tracks from my house, so I'm completely familiar with the volume of the horns and the directional thing.
And it went from 80 decibels. If you understand decibels, with each increment rise, it goes up 100-fold.
Hmm.
So if you're looking at 80 decibels was the standard before they outfitted the locomotives with the 4 directional. In fact, they have a huge problem with engineers going deaf in their left ear, going totally deaf or their left ear, because that's where the train whistle is very interesting. And usually rail yards are put in the lowest SES section of the town. That was one other thing, and it actually affects the education of those students, that their schoolyards are placed near these loud horns, and it affects health. Hearing loud noises on a continuum like that actually brings about cardiovascular issues, auditory issues, educational issues. Kids can't study with the loud noise. It was extraordinarily fascinating to hear how to understand the impact that the rail industry does have in a social setting. So yeah, it was a real, and if I had someone like the city engineers that work with ODOT or in Salem that could kind of map out the most problematic areas and start with that structure, the large piece of it, and then fine tune it, and then work out the dollars, what piece of those huge grants would be needed to retrofit the socially for the people, as opposed to what the rail system needs. We deserve a piece of that pie to fix this change in our lives. So is what I'm saying. Those grants just aren't for the industry. Those grants are also for the people that it's going to impact. And I say we stake our claim.
That's all great information, Janet. I appreciate that. I just learned a lot. And maybe, Doriander, part of what we can ask for is being furnished some of those resources of engineers and people who can work with us, so that we don't have to try to do it all ourselves.
Along with the dissension. Yes, I'm all for that.
Yeah, Janet, that was really helpful. I appreciate that. And I would be thrilled to, maybe we could actually look to you for expertise on as we think tank. I'd love to work with you on
We're
that.
not passive in this. We will not be passive. We are true stakeholders. We have a stake in this. We're true stakeholders.
Yeah, completely. That's again why I was kind of stunned that it was so laissez-faire, like, oh, we might want to talk to you about this. But so far, between those 2 big grants that I talked about, they already have 29 million just for planning and just to develop through the first 2 years. So, I mean, right.
We should claim a piece of that for our understudy on this as well. Those planning dollars shouldn't just go to the rail industry. We certainly should, as the people that are going to be subjected to this change, we should be entitled to a piece of the additional studies needed to address more clearly what our needs are, with a proposal of how this could be put in place with the least impact on
Right.
on us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those strange conundrums because, Coos Bay as a community has been trying so long to kind of work their way out of stagnation or economic stagnation. And so it's exciting that they would have more industry and ability to prosper, but we have to look at the impacts for our side of it. So we'll do that. We're going to dive into this more. I will have more information for our committee here once I do that preliminary conversation with them. And I will invite them to speak. I think that's a great idea. I mean, January may be too soon because, we have December off now. So maybe I could try to ask them to come for the February meeting maybe, and then that'll give us a little time to get more information from them, for us to meet more. Janet, maybe you and I could get together. I'd love to pick your brain more about how you did the quiet stuff, quiet zoning. Yeah, I think something we really have to consider and keep working on as a main priority in this committee. So
The biggest piece is, in my opinion, is establishing the scope of the work,
mhm,
meaning identifying precisely what those areas are,
mhm,
the physical size, location, and
mhm.
then, like I said, the scope of the work, and then you fine tune it down from there with the cost, and expect, don't ask, expect a chunk of that money to do that, to come up with our counter proposal, because we are stakeholders. We're not just some passive people that are just
Yeah,
roll those trains over us. No, we're going to be a part of this planning and a part of the solution.
mhm. Good, good, good. Well, we have our work cut out for us, folks. So, okay. All right. Well, any more questions or thoughts about this thing? This big old train problem? Okay. Stephen, thank you for doing that preliminary research. I'm just excited that we have our group here, and we should make this our primary topic as we move into the new year. Again, we do make it a practice to just take a break from all meetings in December. So that includes this one as well. So, but as we get some ideas, or I hope y'all wouldn't mind if I send you some stuff after I have that preliminary meeting. Can I just keep us all in an email? Okay, good. And then we can just gather and work on that. So, okay. Well, let's see. I had just one quick last update about the Healthy Homes Grant. We're still waiting for the documents from the state. So our project there is on hold. But the pivot to work with the Eugene Mission folks has been great. They were so kind. They said, we were really excited to start on this Healthy Homes Grant, and we're great picking up trash in the neighborhood. They did a stellar job there. They did 5 locations, but they really wanted to kind of start doing this hands-on in-home stuff. So I did a call out to some of our seniors and folks in our community, and they had their first successful kind of senior house visit. They went to Susan DeTroy's house and did a ton of work there, and she was absolutely thrilled. So they did that last week. And then I partnered us again with our original Whitaker Community Council project, the East Blair Housing Cooperative. And so they were there today working on 2 of the units within the co-op. So they had a great time there, and I'll get a post up tomorrow that shows some of that great progress. Then they'll be going there again next Tuesday. So I think since we're just stalled starting the actual big grant, we'll continue in this way to kind of do these individual care for folks. And we'll just keep, that way it gives our Eugene Mission volunteers that hands-on, personable experience they were hoping for, in homes with people, not just they were, picking up trash, which was great too. But So that is the great update there. We're super happy and grateful for them. And we're looking forward to tomorrow night at the Eugene Mission. They're going to give us a really sweet little tour of the Learning Center and the test kitchen and kind of the way that their curriculum and the way that they teach. So we'll get a neat view of that, and we'll have on hand those sweet volunteers that have been working in the Whitaker for us and the community. So should be a great night. I'm going to pick up a bunch of pizza. And Stephen, I wondered if you got your answer on social media yet. I saw that you were wondering about bike parking. Did you?
Yeah, I got the response and
Great.
got the exact address on Google Maps. I was
Good.
able to see which building it was.
Good.
And apparently the message I got was that the bike parking or the bike racks are on one side of the parking lot, which is right beside that building. So I'll see, as long as it's not pouring down with rain, I should be okay. But thank you. If it is pouring down with rain, I may just attend the meeting virtually, but I'll see on the weather.
Okay. Well, I hope you come because we've got some gift cards. We're going to play bingo. We've got a Whitaker bingo game set, and we'll be giving away gift cards through the night. Not the ones from Handy's, unfortunately, so, but other ones. So yeah, it should be a really nice night. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone either in person or online. And yeah, I think we're going to get almost 40 minutes back of our night, unless we have any further conversation. Anybody else or? Okay. Well, fabulous. Thank you all so much. Your inputs tonight were just excellent. I'm grateful. Oh, Julie, go ahead.
Sorry, I just thought of one quick question, which is, do we have any disaster resiliency stuff planned for springtime? Maybe it's too early to think about that. But I didn't know if I had missed out on something there or if we were still pending on that. We've got lots on our plate. We don't need it, but.
Yeah, we're still pending. The OHA grant that was funding that disaster resiliency project has expired, or we're out of funds with that. I don't want to not do it though. I don't want to not think about it. I mean, one of the things, we've got $150 worth of these gift cards from Handy's that we bought. And so I'm taking them in tomorrow, and I was going to chat with Margaret. And yeah, that's a great point, because what I'd like to do is see if we can spend some of them down on, flashlights, tarps. There's a lot of stuff that we could empower our community to build their go bags and emergency kits. And so, I may just be able to get a bunch of crates full of supplies that then we could pass out in spring. So that's kind of what I was going to run by her in the morning. But either way, we have to either spend them down tomorrow or get our money back, which they agreed they would do for us. So I'd rather parlay that into disaster stuff, because then we don't need grant funding. We can just have our own WCC disaster resiliency event, and then we're going to have tons of stuff to give away. So yeah,
Flashlights seem like a fantastic idea. Right. There's lots of things you could do, but everybody should have a flashlight in their go bag.
Yeah.
And $150 would probably get a lot. We'd be better off to have product. They'd probably rather sell us product and give us money.
Yeah, exactly. I like get a bunch of the bins from them and just start packing it with stuff, and I'm sure we could, and then we'll just put it in our storage, and we'll do a big event in the spring. So yeah, good stuff. Okay. Janet?
Oh, along with that thought, I was just voted the Southeast Director of the CERT, just getting into that. So I was in the Weimart. I like shopping there, their employee-owned store, and I really like that.
Yeah.
And I was looking at their radio part in their electronics. And they had these little, I guess they're magneto, the kind you wind up so that you're never without a radio. You just wind it up, and you don't even really need batteries. And in looking at them, they had 3 different brands. And couple of them had a built-in flashlight,
Mhm.
and it operated off the magneto example. So instead of, being worried whether I have batteries or not, you just crank that thing up and you've got your flashlight. It also serves to charge up your cell phone if you
Right.
have self-service. And I just thought those little radios that they hook up to the national NOAA, the National Weather System.
Mhm.
So maybe Santa's going to bring me one. So
I hope so.
and they ran about 60 all the way up to $200. But they all had the same feature depending on how large. But with that grant money, I hope you look into those, because you're not going to be confined to just a flashlight. Oh my gosh, whether I have batteries. These little units have it all. And you don't necessarily have to have the battery pack. You can do that wind up magneto, and it does the communication. It provides you with light, and it provides you with a charging capacity of your cell phone should you need it. And I think one or two of them had a very basic ham radio capacity, if I read it right. I could have spent 3 hours in there looking at all this stuff in there, but that's food for thought for the grant and getting gift cards.
Mhm.
I think that's worthy of. They're kind of a big ticket, so to speak, but I
Yes.
think they're worthy of consideration.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Joanna, go ahead.
Yeah, Janet, I'm sure that's a wonderful option, but I
Mhm.
do want everyone to know that if you've got a desire to operate any level of ham radio, you must be licensed.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Good
I
remember.
would not, because they like to penalize you if you don't.
Yes, they do. Okay.
Besides that, I need the training because I'm not sure. My dad was a ham radio operator. He loved having his ham radio, and he got a bounced wave from Korea one time, and he
Wow.
was as proud as punch that he was able to get because he fought in the Korean conflict.
Yeah,
That's
Gary has been, he's been a ham for a long time now, and he still gets excited every time he can come to me and say, I just got
Yeah.
some country he never had before. And he's been all over the world with this thing, and he's
Yeah.
having a good time with it.
And it's funny, the terminology. I got a bounce from, and I remember my dad telling me that the first time. I go, bounce? How
Right.
did you bounce?
You got what? Yeah,
A
I
signal.
don't have it in my head, but Scott Rosenberg is teaching a technician level class.
Yep.
It was on the Whitaker Community Council website, and I want to thank whoever put that up.
Yeah.
And I might take a look at that.
Yeah, I will.
all right. Okay, all. Well, have a good rest of your night and stay cozy in this coming storm. I hope everyone's safe. They say big winds, so hunker down and drink some tea.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.